What's up, y'all? You're listening to the Extra Point College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Carnes, joined as always by my co-host, Daniel Hammock. Daniel, we're deep into the offseason at this point. The good news is we're only a few weeks away from spring ball, but today we're going to recap the coaching carousel. I think things have finally settled down. I don't think we're going to get any more firings or hirings after this point. So we're going to grade every Power 4 coaching change, starting with the SEC, which had the most openings this offseason. We'll go into the Big Ten and then the ACC and the Big 12 after that. All the Power 4 coaching changes. We'll put a letter grade on all of them. And Daniel, I want to start with, my default answer is just, I'm going to steal Tom Fornelli. It's a C+, and I hope it works out. Or he says, I think it's a great hire. I have no idea if it will work out. I feel like it's how all these coaching changes are.
I think it's fair, especially if you don't know much about the guy or, it doesn't seem, there's a couple of them that's how I feel. It's like, I'm not mad at them for making this decision, but I have no idea.
There's no science to this, so this is our opinion. And people love to put letter grades on stuff. So this is what we think of the hires, given the information we have. But again, if there was a science to this, a lot more schools would nail coaching changes, and we wouldn't have as many every offseason.
Some people call me a science denier, so there's that. We'll see how deep we get in this.
All right, Daniel, SEC. We got to start with LSU. LSU hires Lane Kiffin. He was definitely the hottest name on every big jobs board this offseason or this football season, since it was in season whenever he took that job. But for LSU, Lane Kiffin, what grade are you giving to LSU?
Yeah, this one to me, it's an A. Like, you can't, if we're doing pluses, I like an A+ on this one.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is as good as it gets. This is where, elite coach meets elite opportunity. And I just, I can't get over it. It's one of those where it was a no-win situation as far as how the news was going to break and how, unfortunate it was that it had to be him giving up an opportunity to go, be a coach in the playoff and all of that. But like, you don't do that for anything less than the job being an A+ and the coach being an A+. So hand in a glove, it's easy for me. I think he's excelled everywhere he's been, really, since he really learned his lessons and stuff along the way. I think ending at USC after that point, he's just been constantly rising. So yeah, I think he's ready, and I think this is one of the premier coaches, and he's finally at a premier destination.
Yeah, this is an A+ for me. This is a home run. This was the best name on the board. I think all the theatrics aside, he was the best name on the board as far as a head coach that could go somewhere else to a big job. It was Lane Kiffin. Daniel, when was the last time, trivia question, when was the last time Ole Miss had back-to-back-to-back double-digit win seasons?
Never.
And I think that got lost in all of this is, hey, Lane Kiffin had back-to-back-to-back double-digit win seasons at Ole Miss. That's never been done. And I think the theatrics of the end of it and the drama at the end of it kind of tainted that of Lane Kiffin's this bad guy. He's a dang good football coach. I'll tell you that much. And I know Ole Miss is, we'll talk Ole Miss next, and they got their guy, but he's an A+. I agree with you. I think that's what, if you're LSU, you couldn't have hoped for better than hiring the coach who just did the best he's ever done at an SEC program, like the best they've ever done. He reached their ceiling as far as at Ole Miss, and now you get to take him from a rival and plant him in a job that now the expectations are through the roof. So now the whole can Kiffin win a title valid, because there's no reason you shouldn't be able to at LSU other than other teams are trying to do that too. So easier said than done, but A+ for me for Kiffin. So I agree with you there. We'll go to Ole Miss, where Lane Kiffin left. They promote their defensive coordinator and Pete Golding. Pete Golding coaches the playoff, wins a couple of games. They get to a semifinal under Pete Golding. I think that run was special for Ole Miss fans to have Golding kind of turn down I'm not going to go to LSU with you, and I'm going to stay here, and the defensive staff's going to stay here. Now that we're through all that, Daniel, what do you give Ole Miss's hiring of Pete Golding?
Yeah, interesting when you get a hire and then you actually have some tape to grind and look at.
Yeah.
And he's a first time head coach, but not anymore now that we've seen him a couple times. And it's funny, if you would have asked me right after the hire versus right now, I think my grade is different. Which, is it fair? Is it not? Whatever. We get the opportunity to do this. So it's really a cool, story, because I didn't realize that he had grown up being like a Mississippi guy and all of that kind of stuff. I just obviously knew basically when he entered my lexicon of SEC knowledge, he was Alabama's defensive coordinator. And then basically he took a walk with Saban down the hallway and Saban promoted him to rival. He said, "Hey, you need to go take any job you can get because I will be firing you if that's not the case." And so anyways, he takes the Ole Miss job. It kind of seems like, he got a pay raise to go over there. And then the way Lane Kiffin, run and guns it, defense is always kind of the afterthought. So it's like the defense has not been necessarily this success story at Ole Miss. They've had some good defenses and some better than average at times, but this year was not particularly special. So the fact that they were promoted, it wasn't like this slam dunk initially for me. But I will say, they made, if I could have in the moment just given an A+ to the administration for making a decision so quickly.
Yeah.
I think sometimes decisiveness is better than, making sure you've got the right guy in some cases. And they were like, "This is happening. We're gonna promote him. We're not gonna lose him. He's qualified. We're gonna bring him in, and he's gonna be our guy." And the fact that they acted so swiftly, I think, preserved their season, gave them a fighting chance, and after hindsight, more than a fighting chance. And I think they ended up on the right side of this. So my long-winded answer of saying my grade is a B+. He was going to be a C+ for me prior to
full bump.
It was going to be a C+ based on just the hire, mitigating a disaster, A+ for the administration for making a quick decision. But it's already paid off for them, man. They had 2 wins in the playoff, won a big upset win against Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. So I think that there's some instilled confidence in that. So B+ for me for Pete Golding.
B+. I'm going B for Pete Golding. I was like, I'm not going to be prisoner of the moment of the playoff run. Because again, this is the only unique situation on the list where they took over and we get to see coaching in the postseason from the new hire.
Right.
Which makes this one interesting. But it's a B for me. Daniel, I'm looking down my list at all my letter grades, and spoiler, I don't think I gave a B. I don't think I gave anything higher than a B or a B+ to any coordinator that got promoted to a head coach or got a job as a head coach, which is interesting because if you think about the best head coaches in the sport right now, Kirby Smart went from coordinator to head, this is his first head coaching job. Ryan Day, this is his first head coaching job. Dan Lanning, this is his first head coaching job. Like, those are 3 off the top of my head. Cignetti's not, but I gave some A's to head coaches that move from job to job. But some of the best head coaches in the sport right now were coordinators, and this is their first head coaching job. So maybe I'll be proven wrong here. But B for me for Pete Golding. Yes, I know we've seen him as a head coach technically, but we got to see a full season because it's not just how do you handle, coaching on game day. You really probably get 4 to 5 decisions a game where you make that big of an impact on game day. We got to see a full season of Pete Golding before I'm just like, the playoff was a success, therefore it's an A. I'm cautious because he hasn't done it. So I'm going to give him a B. He's been around some premier programs like you talked about. I give the administration an A, like you said, for making a hire quickly. I thought that was a really good point by you and really good on Ole Miss. So, and with all of these, Daniel, it's a B, and I hope it works out. I'm rooting for all of them, but I hope it works out. Daniel, let's move to, I think, the next hottest job in the SEC that opened, Florida. And, when Florida opened, it was, okay, here's Kiffin to Florida. He wears the visor because of Spurrier. He loves talking trash because of Spurrier. This is, at the minimum, it's a top 10 job at the sport. You could argue top 5 job in the sport, and I myself would argue it's a top 5 job in the sport. And it's like, okay, this is Kiffin. He gets to go be a rival to Kirby Smart, 2 buddies who talk trash to each other in group chats and worked for Saban. I'm like, this is fun. And that was all prior to LSU opening up. They hired John Sombrall I'll save my thoughts on this. Daniel, what is your grade on Florida's hiring of John Sombrall?
Yeah, I think, people can argue experienced head coach and things like that with a couple of these guys that we're going to have coming up of like they went from, a smaller school here. I mean, he was at, of course, Troy and then Tulane, and it comes here. He has his SEC experience as like a position coach with Kentucky and Ole Miss. Um, all that be said, I mean, he's a fast riser. He's, a defensive guy. So it's funny because I feel like any successful Florida head coach has always been an offensive guy. Obviously Spurrier, Urban Meyer, and most recently, the most successful recent one is Dan Mullen, and he was an offensive guy. So, they had the year with Will Muschamp where he was great, and then things weren't great.
Yeah.
So I hate to put it all in the box of like he's branded as a defensive guy. I don't know how it's going to go. Don't think it's a bad hire. They big boyed Auburn for him. So it was, LSU took, Kiffin from Florida, Ole Miss, but Florida was hoping to get him. LSU said, no, he's ours. Florida, of course, took John Sombrall from Auburn. We thought that was going to happen. So, it feels like they stole their guy, but it's a wait and see. It's definitely, so I'm going C plus, and we're gonna wait and see. I don't think it's a bad hire, but yeah, you're not going to a situation that you can just you play Georgia every single year, and you're gonna be swimming in deep waters right away. So there's less. I feel like if you come as a coordinator to a head coach, you have a little bit more of a leash, but when you come as a head coach to a head coach, there's like we kind of expect to win right away. And Florida's very impatient. So I could see, we'll see, but I'm C plus for John Summerall for me. What say you?
I went A. And it's funny because I gave Lane Kiffin an A plus, and if I'm using a baseball term, I would have said home run. This one I'm calling a double because you missed out on Lane Kiffin, which was, I mean, they were very open that was the number one target, but then when they kind of realized it wasn't going to be them, they quickly moved on. And we said on this podcast, Daniel, I said, hey, Florida, don't outthink the room here. I'm like, unfortunately, the people that make these decisions are often illogical. And the illogical thought would have been, well, we just hired the G5 coach from Louisiana, so we can't do that again because it won't work. I'm like, focus on who's the best coach you can hire. And I really do think John Summerall was the best head coach you could hire. Like you mentioned, he was a very fast rising star. When he was at Troy, people around the SEC were saying this guy will be an SEC head coach. He won double-digit games in 3 out of his 4 seasons as a head coach so far. Of course, last year, early in the season, when Ole Miss played Tulane the first time, Lane Kiffin said, this guy will be a head coach in the SEC next year. And people were like, at Ole Miss? Because are you going to be gone? And he lands the Florida job. So I'm giving a lot of credit to Florida for not doing the stupid thing and saying, we're not going to hire the G5 coach from Louisiana, because I do think he was one of the best candidates on the board. I mean, to me, when we did our big board, he was number 2 behind Lane Kiffin for me for Florida, and therefore I think it was a no-brainer decision. And I'm giving him an A, Daniel. I think he is a really good football coach. Again, if you think about the stereotypical SEC coach, like he checks all those boxes as far as he's from the South and was a good recruiter and has coached at multiple SEC schools, and wasn't he a GA at Kentucky too?
He was.
Like where he started.
That's where he started. Yeah.
So, and then like when he wasn't playing in the SECs, but Troy and Alabama and Tulane and Louisiana. So still all those high school ties as a head coach, and checks a lot of boxes of like that stereotypical SEC coach, which I think is a good thing. And I think it is I say he's quieter than Billy Napier as far as like, he's not going to have these zingers. I think he just loves football. And I think if you're Florida, you probably want that right now. You don't want any of the branding stuff. You don't want, whatever money broke money don't spend. I don't know what he's scary go. Scary money don't make money. I'm like, what? You just want like again, if you're Florida, what's the standard? You want Kirby Smart if you're Florida. So maybe they hope they're getting that in John Summerall. I'm giving Florida an A for that coaching hire. Auburn. With Florida and LSU open, I didn't think there was a chance Auburn was going to get Lane Kiffin. They should have hired him 2 years ago when they hired Hugh Freeze, or 3 years ago, whenever it was, when they had the chance. They fire Hugh Freeze, hire Alex Golesh, What do you give this hire, Daniel?
Some people are saying he's a member of the KGB, born in Moscow, of course.
Some are saying.
So I've read some message boards. People are concerned. Yeah, he definitely moved here from the Soviet Union at one point, so it is what it is. But yeah, is he a spy? We don't know. He's not been convicted of espionage, to my knowledge. He also didn't coach at Western Michigan with what's his name from
Gosh,
Connor Stallions. So
thank you
to myself. Yeah, he is not the typical, took the SEC route similar to what John Sombrall did, like you're mentioning. He's, very much a Midwestern guy, Ohio State, Toledo, Illinois. That's in his background, Iowa State. And then he ends up at UCF and then comes up basically on the scene at Tennessee as their offensive coordinator. And that's his only tie so far to the SEC. He goes down, and he's got some experience now at South Florida, but I feel like it's a little bit of a mixed bag. He got a lot of credit this past year for what happened there. He beat up on some SEC teams, which was impressive, and then lands this Auburn job. He's got some guys transferring to Auburn. I feel like I like the hire in the context of what they've had to go through recently. I just don't know if it's going to be like they had to fire Hugh Freeze, but I just don't know if it's going to be an improvement. And that's what worries me. So I'm sticking with a C plus. I'll go C because I'll differentiate from John Summerall. John Summerall's something that I think is an improvement from Billy Napier. I'll say C because I don't know. He could be a star. I don't know. I don't know if they got better. So give me a C for Alex Golesh. What do you say, Jacob?
I'm gonna go with you. I put B to C. Another fast riser. Again, like it's hard for him. He needed to go to USF because when you're with someone like Heupel, who it's like, oh, it's Heupel's offense. It's almost like being Kirby Smart's defensive coordinator, although two of those have become head coaches immediately, so maybe not. But Charlie Weiss Jr. at Ole Miss and at LSU, like whoever Sark's offensive coordinator is, he calls plays. Whoever Lincoln Riley's offensive coordinator is, I don't know. It's like when you're with
Ryan
those coaches.
Day, same thing with him having.
And when you're with those coaches, it's like, okay, well, whose offense is it? Because obviously this is the Heupel offense. So good for him on getting the USF job. And like, hey, it's a major media market. You're probably one win from the playoff this past year, where they would have gone to the American Conference Championship and won. I mean, look, as a head coach, he's 23-15. Yes, he has SEC experience. I'm going C. I put B at first, and I was like, I think I'm leaning C. I think it's just if you're Auburn, it's a single. And I love what you said. I almost did this for all of them of, did you upgrade? And yeah. I'm really not sure if you upgraded if you're Auburn. I just don't know. I don't know. And I'm with you. You had to fire Hugh Freeze. But as with any coach, every coaching change is a risk. And LSU, I feel pretty confident they upgraded from Brian Kelly to Lane Kiffin. And I'm saying that, and I know I was very adamant that I thought Brian Kelly would work at LSU, and he just didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Ole Miss, I don't know if again, I gave him a B, but I don't, I think they downgraded from Lane Kiffin to Pete Golding. But that head coach didn't get fired. He left for a better job.
Right. It's a different situation.
Auburn, I don't know if you upgraded from Hugh Freeze, and you had to fire him. I agree. Don't know if it's an upgrade. I think that's a really good point from you. So I'm with you on a C. I'm right there with you. You and I are same thinking there. All right.
I feel better now because Florida, we were so far apart. At least we're close.
Yeah.
So
that's okay. We got to have some disagreement. All right, Daniel. Arkansas. Right. They fire Sam Pittman. Great start for Sam Pittman. Culture fit. Only job he wanted. It just didn't work. They hire Ryan Silverfield, the Memphis head coach. What letter grade do you give Arkansas?
Yeah. Is the saying, is it D's get degrees? Like you're still passing if you get a D? This one, very much so. I did use that lens to a certain extent. If you fired your head coach and you hired another coach, did you improve? I don't think that they did. I think it's also was there meat left on the bone? Like, could you have either extended another year with your guy? Was it absolutely necessary that you fired? And or is your job better than what you settled for? Could you have hired somebody better? Because some people like Auburn and Florida, I think to a certain extent, their programs are good, but like in the context of everything, they hired the best possible guy they could get. It just is what it is to a certain extent. Arkansas, Ryan Silverfield, I think if you hired him last year, would have been a really good hire. This year, obviously, Memphis beats Arkansas, so maybe that was in the minds of the administration and the search committee or whoever made the decision. But Memphis was like happy to have him go. He's from the he's one of these Memphis coaches that's not. He's one of the few Memphis coaches that I feel like is not trending upwards in his next role. Mike Norvell. It was his right hand man, his offensive coordinator at the time. He's offensive line coach. There was talk about him trying to bring him to Florida State with him. Then he's like, "No, we're going to stay at Memphis." He's been okay there. Anyways, I think Arkansas did them a solid by taking him off their hands, and I would give this one a D. I think they downgraded. They could have done better. Maybe they couldn't have. It's a tough sell to be the bottom half of the SEC every year, but you've got SEC money, and you just gave a promotion to a guy that was probably going to get fired if you gave him another year. So it's a D for me with Arkansas. What about you, Jacob?
Are we allowed to give an F?
I think so. I just felt harsh giving the first F. Are you giving it an F?
I'll go D with you.
Okay.
I'm also at a D. Here's what else is factoring into this, because you made a good point. I pulled up some quotes from Hunter Yurachek, their athletic director. He said, "Our head coach compensation, our assistant coach salary pool, our support staff salary pool, and our overall operating budget ranks towards the bottom of the SEC. I think with that information, Coach Pittman did not have the resources he needed to appropriately compete in this conference right now." And they said that at the offset of firing him. And on the inset of like, hey, we're going to increase that with the new head coach coming in. Like we know we were at fault there. I don't know that they upgraded from Sam Pittman. They're spending way more in basketball than they are in football. And that's a decision you have to make. And that's fine if that's where you want to live. But I'm with you on that his numbers at Memphis are not impressive. Of these G5 coaches that got hired, his name, Daniel, I did not know who he was until he made some comments in the middle of the season last year about another head coach.
Oh, yeah.
He was not remotely on my radar. And I think here's where I'm leading F, and I'll go D still, but is you're an SEC job and the head coach that you wanted and that I thought was the best fit went to Oklahoma State, which we're going to go there.
Mm-hmm.
Like you let Oklahoma State go and get a coach that you could have gotten. Virginia Tech got a coach that you could have gotten. So it kind of tells you where Arkansas is right now as far as a job goes, but still don't love the hire. And this is the one that if I had to, we'll get to these questions later, but if I had to bet on one that I think won't work out, that I'm most confident in, given the whole situation too, Daniel, because I also think Arkansas is a hard place to win. But if Ryan Silverfield was going, he had 2 double-digit win seasons, but 8-3, 6-6, 7-6, 10-3, 11-2, 8-4 at Memphis. Like, what are his best years at Arkansas going to be? I wonder that. So I'm going D with you. I think that's a tough place to win. It's a tough job. I'm going D. Let's go to Kentucky. I mean, how crazy is it, Daniel, that we're 3 years removed from, we had Shiano Sunday. I don't know what you call Mark Stoops Saturday or whatever day it was, but Mark Stoops is going to take the Texas A&M job and the fans revolt and there's a mutiny. And now he's no longer going to take the Texas A&M job. And then now he's fired from Kentucky. Daniel, people said he had the best job in the SEC. He gets a contract extension every time he wins 7 games, which, again, hats off to Kentucky for realizing their place in the SEC. He was a beacon of consistency. I still question firing him because I just don't know what you want if you're Kentucky. But they hire Will Stein. What do you give this, beyond the firing, what do you give this grade to Kentucky for hiring Will Stein?
Yeah, it's one of these things of it's tough to say that you improved when you fire the best coach in Kentucky history. I don't know. Bear Bryant was their coach at one point. Mike Leach was their coach at one point. Those are better coaches, but like in Kentucky history, Stoops was very good. And I think, he had a couple of those years really pre-COVID. There was a lot of was it 17, 18, and 19. He had pretty good seasons those 3 back-to-back years, really doing a lot with less. And then it kind of became, we're going to give you some more resources. And then, things kind of soured, I think, overall. But it was still one of these things. It felt like a safe job for the most part. Just don't stick your neck out too far. And then I think they just got to a place where they just needed, just a fresh take. And as far as that, the whole decision goes, Will Stein. I don't think Stein. I think it's Stein. It seems like he's a good move. You kind of go to an unknown guy who is a coordinator. This is the kind of place, and maybe I'm judging unfairly, but this is the kind of place where I think it's good to go from a coordinator to a head coach. You don't want to go, if you go get a guy who's like a BS, like just another G5 or G6 head coach, and you bring him in, then he's probably using you as a stepping stone. But you're getting a coordinator from a really good team with Oregon for the past 3 years. He's at UTSA before that, and they were a successful program while he was there. They're a tough program, and they're kind of running and gunning on offense. I like it. He's a Kentucky native, so being born in Louisville, played at Louisville, they kind of cut his teeth there. I think there's something about coming home. I mean, he's not at Louisville, but it's his state. He knows it well. I think he's going to be a good recruiter, and there's going to be a long leash for him. So all that to say, it's not a bad one. I don't feel like I did with Ryan Silverfield. I'm just going to go right down the middle with a C. This one, I think I could see this one being, we could look back in 3 years and this being one of those that were like, wow, I didn't realize how good of a hire that was. It was kind of overlooked at the time, but I'm going C.
I'm going B, Daniel. I'm very hopeful about Will Stein. I think working with Dan Lanning and being in that Oregon culture, and Lanning, one, has shown that he can win regardless of who he has as an assistant. Like he's had a lot of turnover, churn there on staff. But again, a fast rising star. He's young. I was trying to look up his age here. He's 36.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he spent time at Texas, high school coach, UTSA, and then Oregon for the past 2 years. Very fast rising star. Even some of the moves we've already seen with him, like in the portal, tells me I think he understands what it takes to win. So I'm really curious seeing, again, coming from a top program, first head coaching job, but you get an SEC job, even though it's a lower tier SEC job. Really curious to watch what he does, and I'm hopeful. So B. Again, I don't know that Kentucky improved, but I really like the hire. I think if you're Kentucky, if you're looking at what are the best candidates you can get, I think a fast rising star at a top 4 program in the sport.
They stayed in their lane very well. And I think that, you could argue me into a B because I'm very positive on it. It's an unknown. So I'm at a C, but no, I could definitely see where this is it's a good spot to be in for him. It's a good spot to be in for Kentucky.
Right.
Just kind of hitting the reset button.
Yeah. I think, again, I don't know if it's an upgrade, but curious to see how it goes because he's hungry. You know what I mean?
He's not, he has to build his brand.
That's right.
He's unknown relatively. So he's going to have to build his brand before he could even leave. And he's going to have to be successful for him to go anywhere else. So, Kentucky can kind of feel good about that.
That's right.
So
I love it. Okay, Daniel, that's the SEC. That was definitely the most head coach openings. And honestly, 3 of the biggest jobs in the country that opened up were all in the SEC. Let's move to where at least 2 of the 3 other ones are in the Big Ten. 4 head coaching changes in the Big Ten. Let's start with probably the biggest job, Daniel. Let's go to Michigan. Due to circumstances beyond their control, Michigan fires Sharon Moore. We'll leave it at that. Michigan fires Sharon Moore. And honestly, we knew what Sharon Moore was, Daniel. Sharon Moore was a stopgap. Sharon Moore was let's get through these cheating allegations. We've won our title. We know we've lost Harbaugh. You're not going to upgrade from Harbaugh. The safe thing was he was not an interim coach by title, but have an interim coach for 2 to 4 years. And let's get the program back under control. Make sure these allegations and, punishment aren't going to be much. he's the fall guy. Well, he's now gone late in the cycle. So you've missed out on all the big names. They go and they hire Kyle Whittingham after he retired from Utah. We haven't talked about this. You and I haven't, Daniel. So really curious to hear your thoughts on this. What's your letter grade on Kyle Whittingham to Michigan?
So I'm actually grouping these three together. Or there's 4 in the Big Ten, but I'm sorry, UCLA, you're barely in the Big Ten. So Michigan, Penn State, and Michigan State.
Okay.
These are all like weird because they all happened later than they should have. Penn State was the first to fire their coach and was like one of the last ones to hire a coach. So it was like everybody turned them down. It was very public and crazy. Michigan State was like one of the last people to fire Jonathan Smith, and their hire. So anyways, we'll get to those, but I'm wanting everybody to know that these are grouped together for me because they're all these are good prestigious jobs to get in the Big Ten, but they all kind of came off the beaten path. So Kyle Whittingham coming by way of Jacob, we've been following the sport for so long. Whittingham has been in our periphery forever, and he's got a head coach in waiting for the past 3 years at Utah. So we're like, this dude's going to retire at any moment. I guess he kind of Mac Jones this, or Mac Brown us, because Mac Brown, of course, had Will Muschamp in waiting as his guy, and then he ends up leaving and then eventually coming back and being at North Carolina. All that to say, Whittingham coming here, I guess you just can't say no to Michigan. It's a great hire. I'm at an A- for this one. I like this one a lot. I think stability is name of the game. Michigan is big on identity. Kyle Whittingham is all about that. You're going to come in, you're going to have a defense that's going to, be sound in everything they do. They're going to, block well. They're going to run the ball. It's just as a hand in the glove for me as far as like what you think Michigan wants to be and what Kyle Whittingham wants to be. I don't know how long he's going to be there. I don't think he took this job to be there for a year and leave or anything like that. And I think if he has success, I mean, when you're renewed in a new place, I think he was kind of over Utah. Not that it was sour. It's just he'd been there forever. He's got maybe a renewed sense of like starting something new. Maybe it's a 4-year deal. Maybe it's going to be 5-6 years, but it's not, I don't think, a long-term deal. But if he's there 6 years, is that not successful? So anyways, I like Kyle Whittingham. I think they're going to be successful with him. I think he's going to, especially early on, he's going to win and he's going to attract people to come there.
Apparently, Daniel, I don't have personal sources on this, but the rumors are that Kyle Whittingham was forced out at Utah and that they didn't want to lose Morgan Scalley. And so the whole head coach in waiting thing was kind of a school, hey, you need to name him head coach in waiting. And okay, we thought you would retire by now. Enough's enough.
Oh yeah, Florida State with
Bowden
and Jimbo Fisher. I forgot about that.
And so apparently Utah did this. And so I don't think Whittingham was not wanting to coach football anymore. And I say that as a good thing because I'm giving this higher an A. I think Kyle Whittingham is a top 10 coach in the sport. So for Michigan to go from Sharon Moore to Kyle Whittingham, dare I say A+. I'm going to stay A. But Daniel, the best coach in Utah history by a lot. This was, again, second most tenured coach in the sport at a school outside of Kurt Ferentz in Iowa. This was who Urban Meyer hand-selected as his successor after he left Utah for the Florida job in 2005. Yeah, Utah won multiple. And he dealt with them going from G5 to the Pac-12 to winning Pac-12 championships, Daniel. Michigan just landed a top 10 coach in the sport. That's how I feel about it. You know what? That is an A+. When I say it like that, Daniel, that's an A+ hire. You go from Sharon Moore to a top 10 coach in the sport. A+ from me.
Upgrade.
Huge upgrade. Penn State fires James Franklin, hires Matt Campbell. I have a lot of thoughts here, Daniel. What grade are you giving Matt Campbell to Penn State?
I'll try to keep mine brief, but yeah, as far as Penn State, firing early and then hiring late is crazy to me. They took a huge roller coaster ride in the public eye. It looked like for a while James Franklin, which we'll get to, won that divorce, and then all of a sudden Matt Campbell like a moth to flame, man, just showing up at that Big Ten job we always expected him to. He's been rumored for so long to be here or
Yep.
there, and here he is, Penn State, one of the premier jobs, and I can't get enough of it, man. I think that he is both a floor raiser and he's got a very, very high ceiling that we have not been able to see yet because he's been hitting his head on the ceiling at his former job. So I think we're going to find out what the ceiling truly is at Penn State because I think he's going to reach it. It's an A+ for me.
Dude, this is you're gonna make me increase it. I'm also going A+.
Yes.
From Penn State, and here's the thing: I don't know that they upgraded. Let me start there. I don't know if there's a ceiling on Penn State. I guess they can win a national title, but I thought they were stupid to fire James Franklin. Let me start there. But to end up hiring Matt Campbell on the back end of that after fumbling the process through the middle, like you said, first job to open, last or one of the last ones to close. It's like, hey, they ended the process where they should have started, which was Matt Campbell. And I guess here's the thing.
Yes, well said.
At the end of the day, the middle stuff's not going to matter if you have a good hire. No one's going to remember that you fired first and hired last because I think they landed on the right result. It's where they should have started. It's where they ended up. You get Matt Campbell. And to me, it's like, what's best case scenario in firing James Franklin? It's hiring Matt Campbell. That's an A+. Yeah, I'm glad you put a plus on it. Well said. A+ from me. Big fan of this and can't wait to see what he does at Penn State. Winningest coach in Iowa State history. Again, a place where you don't win. And if you look and you're like, oh, lots of 7 and 6s in there. This is a look. No one's cursing that in Indiana. We throw that out the window. That's never. I don't know if it's ever going to happen again. But he's a ball coach, man. He just wins. People like to work for him. He hires.
And I think they're going to be good year one. They brought a lot of Iowa State guys with him. He had to because James Franklin took a lot of Penn State guys with him.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to be successful quickly because of what they've been able to do in the transfer portal.
I'm hesitant. I need to see it. I need to see it. I was going to say, hey, patience here because he's a ball coach, man. But I mean, I'll let my bias show. I'm rooting for him. I'm a big Matt Campbell fan. I'm rooting for him. Penn State, A+ from me. This one's interesting, Daniel. Michigan State. You fired Jonathan Smith, who I was a huge fan of. I was so glad they hired him. It didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan State's kind of in this Arkansas, Kentucky range for me in basketball school. How they're being, big school, but how much they're being outspent by other Big Ten schools, I just don't know. They hire Pat Fitzgerald after his case finally gets settled with Northwestern. That's where he last was. Got fired for off the field stuff, not on the field stuff. I'm having a hard time putting a letter grade on this, Daniel. I will be influenced easily on this one. What are you giving Pat Fitzgerald to Michigan State?
Yeah, I would say he's a good coach. It was weird the ending, of course, at Northwestern, but he was very highly thought of at Northwestern. He was a buzzword of Kirk Herbstreit all the time. Pat Fitzgerald, you're like, all right, dude, we get it. You like him. He does that for Matt Campbell too, by the way. But Pat Fitzgerald is a good coach, and I think he's a guy that will raise the floor. So for me, it's a B because I think he's better than a lot of what would have been out there for them. They had to go off the beaten path. That's what all three of these hires to me, it's like it's out. They were all curveballs because, Michigan getting Kyle Whittingham. I just thought Kyle Whittingham was on the way out by how things were described. As far as I thought he was going to retire. So getting him to take a new job was crazy. Getting Matt Campbell to finally leave Iowa State when it seemed like the dust had settled and Penn State was going to hire like a, FCS head coach at that point. And then Michigan State hiring a guy that had been basically, blacklisted by the NCAA and the Big Ten for the past 2 years. It's just, it's a guy that's just been out of sight, out of mind. So I just forgot about him. It's just as easy as that. So the fact that his name popped back up, I'm like, wait a second, this is weird. And, I'm sure he wants to get back at Northwestern and all of that. So I think he's going to be motivated. I think he wants to rebrand himself. I think he's a great coach. So I am going to have this as a B.
Okay.
I think because of his experience, he's familiar with the conference, all that stuff. Give me just an even B for him, for Pat Fitzgerald.
I will also go B then. I put B dude, I could have gone A, B, or C, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Pat Fitzgerald is the winningest coach in Northwestern history. It sucks that it ended the way it did at Northwestern because, I mean, he won like every defensive award you can win in college football as a player for Northwestern. He won 2 Coach of the Year awards. He won the Big Ten West twice. Went to 2 Big Ten championships. Won 110 games at Northwestern. That's not easy to do. So he's been out of it for 3 years. My question marks with him are, I mean, college football has changed a lot in 3 years, Daniel. It's changed a lot. There are coaches who have done this a long time who are struggling to adapt in this new era. So that is my only hesitation with him as a football coach is, can he adapt to this new era? Does the way he won before still work? Because I have no doubt that he can go to a bottom feeder Big Ten program and win some football games and upset teams and just build a stout program where they probably have guys stay for longer and not as many portal players, you know, like it's kind of how he was at Northwestern, even though it was kind of, you know, pre-portal, beginning of portal-ish on there when he left. But cautiously optimistic is kind of how to use a baseball term. I was like, you know, I put baseball term by all of these two when I was trying to figure out what we were going to do. And I put like long fly ball ... of like, I have no, you know, is this going to be caught like half, you know, like when you're sitting in the baseball stadium,
yeah,
and like you're sitting behind home plate in the upper deck, and every fly ball looks like it could be a home run. Then they catch it like a third of the way in the outfield, and you're like, oh, well, that was. I'm like, that's how I feel. I'm sitting in the stands.
You're watching the outfielders run towards the wall, and you're like, this is carrying. Is there enough wind? You know,
that's kind of how I feel about this coaching hire. Is this has the potential to be a home run. It could also be like a first pitch out. I don't know. This is one of my biggest variables, but I'm with you on B because he's a good football coach. Mm-hmm. He's won at a bottom feeder of the Big Ten.
This is the guy you take a chance on. Give him a shot. You know,
I agree.
They cleaned up the off the field stuff. There's not any of that stuff lingering. You're just looking at who can we hire to be the best football coach. I think they did a good job.
I think so too. Lastly, in the Big Ten, UCLA hires Bob Chesney. That's another job that opened up early, Daniel. Bob Chesney, James Madison's head coach. He goes over there. What letter grade are you giving this one?
Yeah, phenomenal hair. If I was grading the hair, it's an A+. He's definitely got that McVay thing going on where they're all trying to look really handsome. So if he's going to be in Southern California, I think that gets you, you know, a good step ahead. Jacob, I didn't realize how long he had been a head coach for. His head coaching record, 132-52. I mean, he's just now winner. You know, there's a lot of D2 in there. There's a lot of Holy Cross. There's a lot, you know, he's putting work in, but following Kirk Cignetti at James Madison, not easy. And he did it. And he did a really good job while he was at James Madison. And he's not been at a big school. So for that, I'm wondering, but also like UCLA, they've had their moments in football, but they've never been, you know, necessarily a powerhouse in football or anything like that. Basketball school, or they're a lot of sports school. They have a wide variety of. I feel like they are very diverse, and so it's tough to pinpoint that. But I think they hired a good football coach, and they hired a guy who's done it with less talent, and he's had to be really good X's and O's wise. He's been a really good developer, and he's shown that over the course of his career. He's been a head coach since 2010, so he's not walking into some scared, you know, like, I don't know what I'm doing. He's not going to, I think they got a good guy. I'm at a B minus, and I could be persuaded to a full letter, to a full B, but he's definitely someone who I like. I think he's on the trend up. We're simply just not going to know. We're going to say that about everybody, I guess, but it is what it is. Give me a B minus for Bob Chesney.
It's another one I'm hopeful on, in that if you're UCLA, what kind of coach do you go and get? And I think this is it. And I hate to say, like, I feel like a trend this year is, if you look at this, Daniel, I can't tell. Did we talk about this or talk about someone else? No, the trend is, okay, what's winning in college football? All right, let's go back a few years. Kirby Smart's coming off of back-to-back national titles. What is the coaching trend then? It is where are the Saban disciples? Where are the Saban coordinators or coordinators at these big schools? Like, that's who needs to get these jobs. Sark gets hired. Lane Kiffin gets hired. Like, it's like we want to hire the next Kirby. A trend this year, and I haven't mentioned it yet, is we want the next Kurt Cignetti, who's the group of 5 head coach who can come here and help us win anywhere and help us win in year one. And I mean, look at the list we talked about so far, Daniel. You've got John Sombrall at Florida, Alex Golesh, Ryan Silverfield, Bob Chesney at UCLA, and we'll talk about a couple more of these, but that's kind of the trend, is who's our Cignetti, because he's the one who just won. So I'm cautious with that, in that, again, hire good football coaches, but I think Bob Chesney's a good football coach. So I'm going to go B. I'm not going to go as low as B minus. I put A to B, Daniel. So I'm going to go B.
Okay.
I'm cautiously optimistic, not just because I wanted to clarify all that to say, not just because it's like, oh, just like Cignetti is the James Madison head coach. I think he's a good football coach. And I think if you're UCLA, finding a good football coach who's a ball guy and X's O's guy from the G5 level is a really good move for them. And I think there's a really good chance they upgraded at head coach. That's why I had an A ceiling on it, but I'll go B for UCLA and Bob Chesney. All right, we've covered the SEC, the Big Ten. Let's move into ACC and Big 12. Let's start with Daniel. Virginia Tech hires James Franklin. This would be 1A and 1B for me, Daniel, as far as best hires of the offseason. What letter grade are you giving James Franklin to Virginia Tech?
Yeah, for me, it's been a slam dunk since the start.
Yep.
A+. I mean,
A+ for me too.
I think he was very seriously considered at a lot of other schools as well. And I think that he set his sights on really a good spot to be. It is what it is. I think Virginia Tech, I think he could revive that program back to their once glory under Frank Beamer. And I think that, he's got a very clear path in the ACC. And then he got right to work, man. He flipped a lot of commitments that were committed to him at Penn State. They flipped basically everybody over signing day. And then a lot of guys at Penn State just were on the way out transfer-wise. They all transferred to Virginia Tech. So I think all in all, he has close to 30 players between the recruits and the transfer guys, basically an infuse of Penn State guys. But more than that, he's just a good football coach. Everywhere he's gone, he's been successful. And for a while, I mentioned earlier with Penn State, I was getting ready to be like, Penn State basically, pulled an Auburn on this when Auburn fired Gus Malzahn and they just got worse. I think that Penn State salvaged it by getting a really good hire, but yeah, I've got James Franklin as a really good hire as well as an elite hire. He's A+ for me.
A+, I think 1A, 1B. You could argue as far as who the school is and what they got. I think you could make the argument this is the best hire of the offseason.
Yeah.
James Franklin and Penn State's fatal flaw was they couldn't beat Ohio State, Michigan, and Oregon. And last year, the bottom fell out after that, and that was why he got fired, and part of me understands it. Again, part of me looks at Penn State outside of the fact that they hired Matt Campbell and says, like, what's the ceiling? Because I think James Franklin was scraping the ceiling. And look, maybe 4 years from now, we look back and I'm like, man, I was so wrong, and Matt Campbell just won his second national championship, and I'm rooting for that. But this is an A++. This might be my favorite hire of the offseason. He gets to stay geographically close to where he was at Penn State. He has won everywhere he's been. James Franklin has. He gets to go to Virginia Tech. And I think the only person who's happier than probably Virginia Tech fans is Jim Phillips, the ACC commissioner, because how good is this for your conference that you got, I think, a top 10 head coach in the sport to come to Virginia Tech. And you know who's not in his way anymore? Ohio State, Michigan, and Oregon. Who's in his way now? Miami? Sure,
Yeah,
they're the powerhouse in the ACC, absolutely. Clemson, question mark? And are either of those schools on the same level as a program consistency-wise as Ohio State, Michigan, and Oregon? The answer is no. So there is a real chance James Franklin could come in and be top dog in the ACC. And just like a Penn State, but way more open, this is a golden path to the playoff every year. And now it's how high is the ceiling? Because I have no doubt he can come in and win the ACC and go to the playoff most years. Playoff most years, not win ACC most years. I think, once every 3 to 4 years, he should be winning the conference. That's what I think of James Franklin. And Now it's like, what's the ceiling at Virginia Tech? I think we're going to find out, because I think James Franklin raises the floor and approaches the ceiling at whatever program he's at. So I think very, very highly of James Franklin. You and I were both pretty strong on it was a mistake for Penn State to fire him, although we think Matt Campbell's a very good hire. I think this is the best hire of the offseason, the more I think about it. It's James Franklin to Virginia Tech. A lot of schools wanted him, and I think it's a great move by him as well to go to. I think it's a win-win all around for him to go to Virginia Tech. Daniel Stanford, Andrew Luck's first hire as is he general manager, president of football? I don't know what he is. They're kind of running that like an NFL over there.
He's general manager, I think.
Tavita Pritchard, so he hires at Stanford. He's a Stanford guy. Daniel, what letter grade are you giving Coach Pritchard to Stanford?
Yeah, it's tough because he's not been a head coach anywhere, and by what I'm looking at, I don't know if he's even really been. He's not been on many people's radar for being a college head coach. He's been at Stanford singularly, and then he went to the Commanders for a couple years as their offensive coordinator, but or quarterbacks coach, excuse me. He wasn't offensive coordinator. That was what's his name, Coach Handsome. Anyways, it's a curveball, but they kind of have to do that at Stanford, and I think that Luck just kind of went with his guy, trying to keep it comfortable. It is what it is. I'm not going to give it a high grade. I'm not going to flunk him, or I guess give him a D like we did Ryan Silverfield, but I'm going to say C-. We'll see what happens. And just, keep it moving.
Completely agree. C-. I put a question mark by it. Let me tell you who this reminds me of when a coaching hire semi-recently that I was just like, I have no idea what to think of this person. It was Jed Fish when he got hired at Arizona. And I gave that a C- of just like, okay, he's kind of bounced around, kind of been in the NFL a little bit. He was, I think it was coming off of the Patriots quarterbacks coach. I think is what he was before the Arizona job. It was something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's just like, I have no idea what to think of this. Like, I have no idea who he is.
It's like he's been around successful people.
Right. And I'm like, I have no idea. And he's turned out to be a good coach, good football coach. C-, but I'm like, that was my comparison, is maybe he's like a Jed Fish, and I know nothing about him, and he's going to come in and just be a really good football coach. They got the Stanford, bromance going on over there. So
he's
hope it works out for him.
While Luck was there.
He preceded Luck as a quarterback. He was the quarterback before Andrew Luck, or he was there those same years. I don't know. He was starter or backup, to be honest with you. But he's only ever been at Stanford or the Commanders quarterbacks coach, and now he's back at Stanford as the head coach. So I hope it works out. Their crosstown ACC rival, nothing like Atlantic Coast rival, Cal and Stanford
on the Pacific Ocean.
The Pacific Ocean. Cal, dude, again, they did something funny. They fired the Oregon defensive coordinator Justin Wilcox, and they hired the Oregon defensive coordinator Tosh Lupoi. What letter grade do you give Cal's hiring of Tosh Lupoi?
Yeah, I'm very interested to see. He's from California, of course, a defensive line coach at Cal way back when. That's where he started his coaching career. And then, he's one of these guys that's Alabama. He was a defensive assistant for Nick Saban for years. Really got a big reputation for being a great recruiter. And so that kind of continued to stick around, and he was just kind of known around as such a good recruiter. And of course he had the California ties, so he had that pipeline going. And, Alabama at that point is just like, Nick Saban's basically got the Avengers on his staff when he's, recruiting everybody. And so if you stand out as an elite recruiter on that staff, you're an elite recruiter. So
yep.
Of course, that's where he got to know Dan Lanning, and so that's where that connection came through. It's why he became his defensive coordinator. Coached, in the NFL with Cleveland Browns, Atlanta Falcons, Jags, I think. So he's definitely, been around. He's one of these names that's been adjacent. When he popped up as the Oregon DC the past couple of years, I was like, it's nice to see that he grew into that, because when he was made defensive coordinator at Alabama, I remember him being fired from that role, because Nick Saban said, admittedly, he gave him too much too quick. He promoted him because he was scared to lose him because of his recruiting chops. And he was kind of overwhelmed. But I think that it seems like Tosh Lupoi has grown and he just wasn't ready to call defense yet. He wasn't one of Saban. Saban holds everybody to extremely high standards. He was not ready for that role when he got it.
Yep.
And anyways,
that's okay.
All that lore to say now he's here, he's back home, and he's a really good recruiter. And I think that it kind of shows that Cal cares about football, which gets me excited. I'm going to give it a B-. How about that? A B-. Tosh Lupoi. I like him. He's a first-time head coach, but he's kind of been around for a while.
It's funny. I'm like, what grade did I give? I'm giving him a B. This is the same. This is Will Stein for me. Like, it's the same. And not just because they both came from Oregon, but like you mentioned, both elite recruiters on an elite staff around good programs. And for him, having been in an SEC program, to go and spend, 3 years in the NFL, coming back and being a coordinator at a top level program in Oregon. Again, I think you got to think different if you're at a program like Cal, like Stanford, like these mid to bottom tier Power 4 schools where football is not prioritized. And I think being around the NFL helps in that you're a football guy. And I'm sure he's got a big resume of people he's learned from. He was a standout on that staff, and good on Cal, again, for not doing the stupid thing and saying, well, we hired the Oregon DC last time. We're not going to do that again. Just hire the guy that's the best fit. And I think they did that with Tosh Lupoi. So don't know if it's an upgrade. Again, don't know the ceiling at Cal. I don't know if Justin Wilcox was hitting that, but it's a B for me. I like the hire of him at Cal. Okay, Daniel, Big 12, 3 more. Oklahoma State hires Eric Morris after firing Mike Gundy. Mike Gundy was the third most tenured coach in college football. Just a messy ending there. It just, the bottom fell out. Gundy had to be fired. His way wasn't going to win anymore. They go and get Eric Morris. What's your letter grade on Eric Morris, Daniel?
Keep it brief, man. This is an A. I like it. Eric Morris is the man. Looking through guys that he's coached with along the way, I mean, he coached, with Mike Leach at Washington State. He's coached at Texas Tech with Coach Handsome. He went back to Washington State with Mike Leach, and then, or excuse me, not with Mike Leach. That was his second stint. Anyways, North Texas has been a problem, and they were really good last year. His air raid attack that he's got going on, I just feel like this is a hand in the glove, as far as going to Oklahoma State. He's from Texas, so he's going to have the pipeline of, knowing a lot of these coaches in this area. He coached at Houston. Like, he's just incarnate word. He's going to be one of these guys that I think is going to be successful. And he does what Oklahoma State wants to do. So give me an A for Eric Morris.
Okay, remind me. This is the same era. Is this the same? He was at Incarnate Word with Cam Ward and then got hired at Washington State. Is this the OC that came with him, or is that someone else?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. I'm like, this was my second best group of 5 head coach available. I think that other schools should have gone after Eric Morris, and the fact that Oklahoma State landed him is a big deal. And the fact that he chose Oklahoma State tells me that Oklahoma State's putting more investment, because I know that's not the only offer he had. I'm a big fan of Eric Morris. This is an A for me as well. I hope it works. This could be really exciting to have some really good ball coaches in the Big 12 to go compete with Texas Tech, because they're just going to outspend everybody. But yeah, proven like X's and O's guys in OC, proven head coach now at the G5 level. North Texas has been a problem. His offense is fun. It's modern. It's what everybody wants to run. He, again, if we're following the trend, he imported all his best players into Oklahoma State. So he's doing that thing. Look out for Oklahoma State to be a problem in year 1. That's where I'm at with Eric Morris. So A for me as well, Daniel. Kansas State, Chris Kleiman. I'm like similar names here. I'm like looking, I'm like, that's not right. Retires. Kansas State, like, athletic director, visibly upset about it, because Chris Kleiman just, and it's a shame. We're going to talk next week about the state of college football, and I promise it won't all be negative. We'll have positive stuff to say, but we love college football. It's still great. It's a shame that a coach like Chris Kleiman stepped away because of the where college football is right now.
The climate, yeah.
Yeah, that's not fun. Kleiman's a good guy, good coach. So he steps away. You don't fire a head coach. Kansas State gets to hire the golden child, Colin Klein, one of, if not the best quarterback in Kansas State history, played for, it's a great podcast. I'm going to blank on the greatest Kansas Kansas State head coach's name. Oh my God, I'm embarrassed.
Golly, Bill Snyder.
Thank you. I'm
Bill
like
Snyder.
the freaking stadium is named after him. I'm pretty sure. Bill
Yeah,
Snyder played for Snyder as a quarterback. They hire Colin Klein. What grade are you giving this, Daniel?
Yeah, I like this one a lot. I've actually got this one as an A.
Okay.
So we're good. He's someone who I think that he wanted to have this job. He's been, he's a coordinator there, went to Texas A&M. You don't leave home for anything. So he went for a good job being a, promotion. And then he gets to come home to another promotion. So I think he was a great player there. He was a really good offensive coordinator while he was there. And I think he's going to be, hand in the glove fit.
Yeah, for him to have, again, if you're a school like this is what every school wants to have and wants to have work out, right? Is you have someone who is like an amazing player for you, like an all-time player for you, like from the state, come home and be a head coach and then be successful. Every school wants it. Very few actually get it. Kansas State has a chance to get it. I'm going B. I've not given any OC to head coach move an A yet. This would be my one, but I'm going to go B, just because I hope it works out. That's my it's hard for me to look at it and be like, yes, I'm confident this is an A as far as you've never had head coaching experience. But again, that doesn't mean it's not going to work. Like I said, some of the best coaches in the sport were coordinators in their first job. They're being ultra successful. So I'm going to go B out of principle, but really, really, really like this hire. And again, rooting for it. The Kansas State has their golden boy be a great head coach, and he's there 20 years. What I'm hoping for. Lastly, Daniel, Iowa State kind of gets the butt of it, unfortunately, with where we are in the sport because of Penn State's lack of dragging their feet in the hiring cycle. Now their job opens up last when they finally land where they should have started. They could have saved Iowa State a lot of trouble had they just started with Matt Campbell like they should have, Daniel. Iowa State hires Jimmy Rogers from Washington State. What letter grade are you giving this head coach?
Yeah, Jimmy Rogers walked into a tough spot at Washington State when he went there, and just kind of, was basically just filling a gap, I think. And his time at South Dakota State was good. It's so recent and new. It's tough to give it like a really high grade, but I'm not down on him. I think he's going to be successful. I'm a C plus.
Okay.
But I like him. I think he could do really good things. And he's another one of these, kind of reminds me of like how Will Stein, you're like, he might be something in a couple of years where you look back and be like, you know what? That was a really good hire. We weren't expecting that. He's definitely not going to be upgraded over Matt Campbell. So, but yeah, give me a C plus for Jimmy Rogers.
This one for me, Daniel, I'm going B, and I'm giving some credit to, you know what? No, I'm not even going to clarify. It's a B. This guy won at South Dakota State. He only had one season at Washington State, so he couldn't really build anything there. Now he gets the Iowa State job, which is an upgrade over Washington State in the current climate. But he's a winner at the FCS level at South Dakota State. He was on staff at South Dakota State before he became the head coach, where he was the assistant head coach and the DC at South Dakota State. So he's been on a winning program for a long time. And I think if you're Iowa State, again, you want someone like Matt Campbell who's a ball coach, man, who can like develop players, take under-recruited guys, develop them. And that's what they're doing at the FCS level year in and year out. So this is a B for me. I could go higher, but it's a B for me. And especially a lot of credit for the administration for pulling the trigger and hiring him because of how little time they had to make a hire and the candidates being gone. So I think given what they had, this is honestly, if you're judging the situation, you could say it's an A, but I'm giving it a B as far as just like fit and hire. B for Jimmy Rogers to Iowa State. Okay, Daniel, lastly, rapid fire here.
Yes.
All right. Best fit.
Best fit. I'm going to go James Franklin.
That's my answer too. We're going to have a lot of same answers here.
That's good.
Mine's also James Franklin. Worst fit.
I'm going to say it's Ryan Silverfield.
Mine too. I was like, we're going to go 2 for 2 here. Most likely to lose to their rival in year one.
I'm going to go with Mr. KGB himself, Alex Golesh.
That's a good one.
He's got 2 rivals, and he's going to lose to both. Georgia and Alabama are always on their schedule. So worst case, he's going to at least lose to one of them. So I think it's a slam dunk. He has to play 2 every year.
For terms of a graphic later, I will go with you with Golesh, but my answer is still Silverfield. Most likely.
Who is Arkansas's rival? So
it doesn't matter. Pick one. I think they're going to lose
to everybody.
Yeah, I'm like, they lost to Memphis last year. So, okay, most likely. How about, let's say first to win a college football playoff. How's that? Is it most like first to win the college football playoff?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got to be Lane Kiffin.
That's my answer too. I think it's Lane Kiffin. Most likely to be fired first.
I think this is also Golesh.
That was going to be my answer. I think it's Golesh too.
It's just it's just a tough place to stay long term right now. I mean, Miles on the way, what did I say?
Florida, it's okay, but Auburn.
That was my number 2 for what it's worth.
Really?
Overall. Just because
I would not have gone there.
I think Florida fires quickly. They fired Mullen before they should have. But yeah.
Yeah, that one, Golesh was my answer. I don't think this will happen. But if LSU goes 8-4 back-to-back years, do they fire Kiffin?
You know
what I mean? It's just like expectations are through the roof, as they should be, for what it's worth. Some of those big schools are impatient. But yes, I think you're right in the answers. Golesh there. We've agreed on all of these minus one. I agree with you with Golesh.
We're going to agree on this one too.
Best chance to win their conference in year one. I have 2
James
answers.
Franklin.
I'm tier one. I think you're right. I think it's James Franklin. I'm tempted to go Lane. I'm all in.
Yeah.
I think all the theatrics of how he left has people. I don't think we're talking about the football coach Lane Kiffin at LSU enough. I think that's been the sideshow to what's been front and center of like what Lane's doing, and he looks so weird at the basketball game, and he left the Saints game earlier, whatever it was, and it's just like, hey, I think we're forgetting Lane Kiffin, the football coach, who brought Ole Miss back to back double-digit win season for the first time ever, who took their team 11-1 to a college football playoff. And no, he didn't coach in those games. That team was capable of winning 2 games in the playoff at Ole Miss. That guy's the head coach at LSU now.
Yeah.
I think we're not, it's hard to believe we're talking about Lane Kiffin this much. And I think that's not being talked about enough.
It's amazing.
For the sake of no, you know what? You're right. The most likely to win in year one, their conference, it is James Franklin at Virginia Tech. I agree. Okay. Daniel, we will be back next week. And look, stay on the social. We're going to have fun graphics like this. Graphics guy Ben is in the kitchen.
He's cooking, dude.
He's cooking. We'll have all these head coaches graded on graphics there. So be sure to follow us on Instagram at the Extra Point Pod. You'll also catch these graphics on Daniel's and I's Twitter accounts. We'll be back next week to talk the state of college football. We just had the State of the Union. We're recording this the day after the State of the Union. What's the state of the sport? What's the state of college football, Daniel? How do we feel about our beloved sport that we think is the greatest sport in the world? Still think that. So it'll be a positive episode. We'll have some bones to pick about stuff we wish was different, how we change it. So what's the state of the sport? We'll give that right here on the Extra Point next week. You can follow Daniel on Twitter at Deep South Daniel. You can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Carnes with a K. That will do it for this edition of the Extra Point. He is Daniel. I am Jacob. See ya.